All right, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, you've got to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla said that a few years ago, and that's going to pertain to exactly what I'm talking about today in terms of Bitcoin. But first, I want to tell you 5 things. And this is all about changing the narrative. And it's so important to change the narrative, yet so difficult, because what you have to do is hit people with something that's big enough to get their attention. Why? Because we've got politicians like Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts who is driving a nail into the palm of the savior of the planet. She's crucifying one of the best chances we have to accelerate the deployment of renewable energy. So I'm going to give you 5 quick tools that'll help you change the narrative. But before I do, I want to let you know who I am and why I came up with these things. Because I could be on some beautiful granite rock climbing, hanging off my fingernails, because that's what I love to do, and that's what I was doing before all this started. And how I got there is a combination of technology and environment. So let me share that with you for a second, and then I'll give you the 5 tips and then take Q&A if we have time. So after graduate school, I got into building data centers. And I built 6 million square feet of data centers as part of a team for Microsoft, Lawson, Computer Associates. And then I realized that people were building data centers all the same way. And they didn't need to own hardware, and they didn't need to come in and set things up and monitor them and management. We could do something different. So I started this company called Server Vault. And what we did was we put data centers all over the world. We built them. We managed all the infrastructure. We told people, you don't have to come here. You can just access your stuff, and it's all going to be in the ether. And so Server Vault didn't quite have the marketing of Amazon because they called it a cloud. We called it ether. But it was one of the first cloud hosting companies ever. And I sold it in 2002. I wish I hadn't, because it's worth about $3 billion today. But lesson learned. That's a multi-million-dollar lesson there. And after that, I went up to MIT, went back to summer school, and started researching this new technology called RFID, radio frequency identification. And I started a company called Odin, took some of those guys from MIT, and we built some of the most sophisticated and successful systems in the RFID space. We did over 500 different projects for everyone from the DoD to Johnson & Johnson before we sold that company. And the company was, right before we sold it, Obama gave us an award for innovation for some of these chips that we designed and this communication system we designed for the DoD. So I was really proud of that and the team we put together from MIT. And super smart guys. And then I started a social media company. For those of you who ski, you might have used part of that in something called Epic Mix. Then I started another company. And during all this, I bought a house in France, the most beautiful place in the world. It's called Chamonix, France. Anyone know Chamonix? Skiers out there, climbers? Okay, a couple people. Most beautiful place in the world. During that time, I'd be skiing or climbing, and there's a place where you can go and look at the glacier where all the tourists go. And if you walk down the stairs, you see on the side of the rock a plaque that they put there that says the year. 1996, 1998, 2000, 2005, 2010. That's the level of the glacier. In Chamonix, pow! I was hit with this climate change, because in Boston, you don't see things change. In LA, you don't see things change. In Singapore, everything looks the same when you're looking out at buildings. In Chamonix, I could literally see these glaciers shrinking every day. And I thought to myself, I've got to do something about this climate change. So I became somewhat of a climate crusader with my teenage daughter. We started doing stuff together to help the climate. This is about the same time that I started investing in Bitcoin. So 2017, 2018, I bought my first few Bitcoins. I was a rower for a long time, so I knew about the Winklevi, and I heard all about their foray into it, and I thought, okay, well, I'll gamble a few bucks. And then I thought, with my data center background, I might as well go into mining. So I started mining. And what I realized was it was such a brute force approach. It was never thought of to be something scalable, to be something big, to be something that was done at a really high professional level. They were all just single units that people could do on their own or put in their garage. The reason behind it makes perfect sense, of course, because I was lucky enough to meet Satoshi Nakamoto, and what she said was, I want to have two things about Bitcoin that are important. One is that it's diversified community and anyone can get on the laptop and mint a coin. Well, we know where that's gone. And number two, that it drives deployment of new renewable energy, because it's the only thing out there that's going to be incentivized by having these really cheap energy prices. So with that, I thought to myself, I can do something about this. And the thought came to me, I've got a new mission, and that is to put every single miner of Bitcoin who uses fossil fuels out of business. So how do you do that? What's the most practical way? This is how Elon Musk got people to drive electric cars, right? It's the same idea. You create a product that's so much better, so much more efficient, so much more profitable than anything else, that people will want your product, which is what we've done. So I've got my whole team from MIT together, and we've created that miner that you see behind me. You can see it at our booth as well by the front doors. And that thing is so much more efficient, and so many people want to buy it, but we have a big caveat. You can only buy that machine if you contractually agree to be carbon neutral. So people who want to buy it and who are using coal-fired energy, not a chance. We say no. So greed isn't driving us on this mission. Helping the environment, changing the world, and helping deploy Web3 technology is what's driving us. So that's enough of my background to let you know why I'm here and where this came from. Now let me give you the 5 points. If I can get my Face ID up here. So the first thing, this is the POW, is to make some noise. I mentioned Elizabeth Warren at the start of this. Every single one of you has a senator, has a congressman, has a mayor, has a governor. We've got to start communicating with them before this opportunity is passed. As a matter of fact, there was something that was just passed by the Congress, has to go to the Senate for ratification, which is to make America more competitive in areas like chip manufacturing. Every one of you out there should be part of this. Everyone in the crypto industry should be part of this. But in order for us to get favorable consideration, we've got to change the narrative that this is the best thing we can possibly do for the environment. So number one is POW. Make some noise. Tell your, that's it. Go V. Tell your congressmen, tell your senators. Post unarguable data up about abandoned energy. Post unarguable data about the cost of energy and how much more profitable it is to be on renewables. So number two, I'm going to go back to that Tesla quote. Understand the concept of digital energy. So Bitcoin, proof of work, is the only scenario that I can think of that takes electricity, converts it to digital energy that can possibly be used to buy legitimate objects in the real world. So for all those data centers I host, for all that electricity that I burned in the data center career, what I was doing was taking energy and converting it to pixels, to something on a screen. And that's it. That's all that does. Bitcoin takes energy, electricity, produces digital energy that you can then use to buy a car, to buy a house, to go someplace. So think about that concept of digital energy and try and share that with people, because that means that energy is being stored and used in the economy. That means there's velocity to that energy, and just instead of just being lost on pixels in a social media post or in an email. The third point is all mining needs to go green by 2025. So if we as an industry commit to every mining machine being on renewable energy, being carbon neutral by 2025, then we'll get the support of every politician out there, because we'll be the first industry to do that. And this industry is young enough where we can do that. The only thing that gets in the way is greed. So next, the fourth point is design technology with a big system in mind. So each one of our miners starts at 5 petahash. The second generation is 9 petahash. It's got a whole system designed for upgrade. That's how we have to think. You know that giant miner that he was just talking about in the parking lot? We actually need miners like that, because that's the type of scale we need. And lastly, we have to give technology away. Any country that wants to deploy renewable energies, any person who wants to try and use Bitcoin mining to put a solar panel on their house, to put wind farms in their state, we should be able to give away our technology. Maybe it's the last generation of the technology, maybe it's a nonprofit, but if they're going to use it, if some sovereign state, if some nation wants to use Bitcoin mining to fund renewable energy, we should be the ones as an industry providing that to them. So those are my 5 quick points on how to change the narrative. And the POW that we all heard about, how do you spell that? P-O-W, proof of work. That's the key to renewable energy. With that, I'll take whatever questions people might have. No one? Okay.
We have one question.
Are there specific sources of renewable energy that you suggest or recommend that we push our senators, our government to fund or to support probably more than others?
So the question was, should we be pushing our governors, our senators?
The question is there a specific type of energy that we should focus on when pushing our senators and our government?
So as a Bitcoin miner, I want to focus on hydro or geothermal, right? Because it's 24/7. But it doesn't have to be, because the technology is easy enough to do, to ramp on and ramp off and keep things running even at a low level of wattage, right? If you have to ramp down. But I think if we can push, like Niagara Falls is an incredible energy source, right? A lot of people know that, people who are hosting in New York and who are familiar with that energy center. Just think of all the energy that we could harness from that without hurting the environment, that's consistent, that'll run, except maybe in the coldest winter days. But it's that type of thing. If we can say, look, we need more geothermal, we need more hydro, we've got to have access to this. And the other thing a lot of people lose out on is many renewable providers. We're working with someone in Spain with a wind turbine company, and they have tons of inventory of their wind turbines. They have all the land they can need, but the grid isn't there to support them yet, so they're not building anything. So I said, okay, we'll take one of those 2 megawatt things, put 5 of our units in there, and just start mining Bitcoin until the grid catches up to you. So that's a great way, because then the government's incentivized to connect to that wind source as well. So there's a lot we can do. There's a lot more we can do as an industry, even individuals, to make noise about this and to get out there. So I think with that, that's about it. Thank you all very much. Best of luck changing the narrative.